Good day. As we continue to face this academic year amidst pandemic, we're still trying our best and striving to keep on learning and discovering something new. It looks like you're really excited to show me how good you are. Different levels of activities will be served to test your knowledge and understanding. But you don't have to worry because I am Mom Ailene and I am always here to guide you, to teach you, and to help you. Have you ever encountered or heard the word bias? How about prejudice? If so, what are your thoughts about these two words? Okay, let me show you examples of situations to give you more context about this topic. I want you to carefully analyze the given situations. Try to determine what are the noticeable things happened in the given examples. Here is the first one.
Number 1. One of the judges in a beauty contest gave the highest points to one of the contestants just because he knows her personally. What do you think of this?
Time is up, kids. Come on, show me your answer.
Yes, you're right. Here is the answer. Let's move on to the second example. Number 2. They don't want to recruit Abby as their new team player because she's a girl. How about this one? What is it?
Time is up, kids. Come on, show me your answer.
Yes, the correct answer is
Do you get it right? Good job! And for that, you have earned a dog paw. Every dog paw is equivalent into 2 points. At the end of this lesson, we are going to count all of your points. So keep on collecting them. Do you want more examples, class? Okay, here's another set of examples.
the mayor of your province decided to give the vaccine first to the government officials instead of giving it to the medical frontliners.
What do you think happened in this situation? Is it being biased or is it prejudice? I'll give you 5 seconds to answer. Time is up, kids. Come on, show me your answer. Great, you got it right. Here is the correct answer. And for that, you have earned a dog paw. Before we proceed to our topic, here is your last example.
A group of Bajau ride the jeepney. All of the passengers look at them with disgust in their eyes and consider them as thieves. What do you think of this?
Time is up, kids. Show me your answer. Great, you got it right again. For that, I'm sending you this dog paw for those who got all the correct answer. Good job, kids. How did you come up with your answers? It seems like you already have an idea about our topic. What is it? Yes, our topic is about bias and prejudice. And for this episode, we're going to talk about the differences between two of them.
At the end of this episode, you are expected to define bias from prejudice. Determine whether a scenario is an example of bias or prejudice. Write an example scenarios wherein bias and prejudice are normally seen in our society.
Also, you will get a dogbo as coupon every time you get a correct answer. So keep an eye on your points and keep on collecting them. Before we start our discussion, kindly bring out your pen, your self-learning module, and your notebook.
Come on, let's go. What is bias? Bias is an inclination for or against one person or group, especially in a way considered to be unfair. It is believed that some ideas, people, and etc. are better than others. When one person is biased towards a certain thing, it is difficult to make a fair judgment. Here's a clear example of this. Imagine that you're a teacher and you see two students fighting. You personally know one of them, so you jump to the conclusion that it was the other student who started the fight. Here, you are biased towards the student you personally know, but you really have no idea who started the fight.
Do you get that, class? Do you understand what bias is? Great! I know you're excited to answer activities about this topic, but first, let's talk about the different types of biases. Bias has 7 different types, and here is the first one.
Anchoring bias. It occurs when people rely too much on pre-existing information or the first information they find when making decisions. Let's study the sample. If you see a dress that cost 1,000 pesos, then see a second one on the same exact qualities but only cost 500 pesos, you're prone to conclude that the second dress is made from cheaper materials than the first one. Whereas, if you only see the dress that cost 500 peso, you wouldn't think that it's cheaper. You'd probably think that the 1,000 peso dress is quite expensive for its price, with the fact that they both have the same quality. Anchoring bias is the unconscious behavior that we tend to anchor our idea based on the first information we found, and we'll let that influence our opinions. Conformity bias. The tendency of people have to behave like those around them rather than using their own personal judgment. Example: studies showed that people are more likely to act in pro-social manner, such as contributing to charity or conserving water, if they see or hear that others are doing it too. Conformity bias can cause people to simply follow that they can see around them, rather than use their own independent ethical judgment. It's the conscious behavior of people that if those around them are making ethical choices that indicate the social norm, it is easier for them to follow and copy whatever those are people doing. Beauty bias, a social behavior that we have a little control over. It is the idea that physically attractive individuals are socially accepted. Example: people tend to focus on attractive actors more favorably than unattractive actors when choosing their idols without even considering their talents. It may not come as a surprise that attractive people have certain advantages over less attractive people. They tend to focus more on their physical qualities, which is very common nowadays. Beauty bias focuses on what is good in being beautiful. Affinity bias, the unconscious tendency to get along with others who we think are like us. Example: viewing someone as particularly intelligent just because you attended the same university. It is also a type of unconscious bias wherein we try to reach a quicker conclusion based on how they are presenting themselves. We tend to base our standards on things we are familiar with. Halo effect. Halo effect is the positive impression of somebody that leads us to overlook their negative characteristics or treat them more favorably than others. Example: a well-dressed student might be perceived to be more competent when it comes to academics without checking his grades, records, and background. Halo effect happens when we judge person's qualities by other unrelated, usually physical qualities. Horn effect. While the horn effect is the negative impression that we are more likely to concentrate and it leads us to treat them badly. Example: an overweight playmate is perceived to be lazy, whereas another kid who runs and plays basketball is perceived as highly motivated and more active. Horn effect is based on negative traits of people. It is opposite of the halo effect. Confirmation bias. It is the tendency to look for information that supports rather than rejects one's preconceptions, typically by interpreting evidence to confirm existing beliefs while rejecting or ignoring any conflicting data. Example: Juan is in support of death penalty. He seeks news stories and opinion pieces that will support his claim and stand about the topic. Even though he is fully aware that the justice system in his country is currently unjust. It is the type of bias that can't prevent us from looking at situations objectively. It can also influence the decision we make and can lead us to poor or faulty choices.
Are you still there, kids? Okay, before we proceed to another topic, are you ready for an activity? Good! You're going to answer a 7-item quiz. If you were really with me earlier, this will only be an easy task for you. This activity is entitled, What Would You Choose? I want you to choose what you think is the best answer in each given situations. Write your answers on your notebook. I'll give you 5 seconds in each item. Let's start!
Number 1. You're in the mall and saw a pair of earrings that cost 500 peso, then found another pair of earrings for only 200 pesos. You already conclude that the second earring has poor quality than the first one. What do you think is the answer? Letter A. Confirmation bias. Letter B. Beauty bias. Letter C. Conformity bias. Or letter D. Anchoring bias. Here is the correct answer. The buyer anchored her opinion based on the first information she saw. Number 2. Rosana donated a huge part of her allowance in an orphanage because she found out that it's a trend on the internet and other people around her are doing so. What do you think is the answer? Letter A. Anchoring bias. Letter B. Horn effect. Letter C. Conformity bias. Or letter D. Halo effect. Here is the answer. Mimicking others' ethical choices is considered as conformity bias. Number 3. Hannah is taller than Amy. That is why Hannah is often perceived as more effective leader by her coworkers. What do you think is the answer? Letter A. Horn effect. Letter B. Beauty bias. Letter C. Confirmation bias. Or letter D. Conformity bias. The correct answer is because more attractive people tend to receive positive treatment. Number 4. Out of all competent applicants for the vacant position, Henry, the manager, decided to hire Mico. because they both attended the same university and college. What do you think is the answer? Letter A, affinity bias. Letter B, beauty bias. Letter C, anchoring bias. Or letter D, halo effect. The correct answer is when someone only focuses with the same quality that they share together, it is considered as affinity bias. Number 5. Jordan assumes that Joy is an overall good person since she's a good-looking person in a photograph. What do you think is the answer? Letter A, halo effect. Letter B, horn effect. Letter C, affinity bias. Letter D, confirmation bias. The correct answer is because focusing only on the positive characteristics of the person, regardless his or her negative characteristic, will fall under halo effect. Number 6. King is fat. He is often perceived as lazy and irresponsible. What do you think is the answer? Letter A, affinity bias. Letter B, horn effect. Letter C, confirmation bias. Or letter D, affinity bias. Here is the correct answer. If it only focused on the negative side of one person, and it tend to neglect its positive characteristic, it is called the horn effect. For the last number, number 7. Lora believes that the left-handed people are more artistic than the right-handed people. She also seeks information to confirm and support her stand. Letter A, confirmation bias. Letter B, conformity bias. Letter C, anchoring bias. Or letter D, affinity bias. The correct answer is when someone is trying to support one belief or opinion regardless the fact that it's not based on facts and evidences, it's called as confirmation bias.
Great job, kids! I'm sending you another set of dog paws for those who got it all right. I hope that we're still on the same page of your self-learning module. To add more, let's now proceed to Prejudice.
Prejudice. Prejudice is a preconceived opinion that is not based on actual experience or reason. It is often considered to be a negative or unfair attitude towards a person based on that person's membership of a particular social group. Prejudice can be based on factors like religion, gender, age, caste, and race. Racial prejudice, frequently used to justify and keep a group in a subordinate position such as lower social class. Example: some white Americans tend to see themselves more powerful than black Americans. It happens when someone is discriminating one person because of his or her race. Sexism prejudice, defined as an ideology based on the belief that one sex is superior to another. It is discrimination, prejudice, or stereotyping based on gender. It is more often expressed toward women and girls. Example: long time ago, many people believed that the only men have the right to vote and finish their studies, while women need to stay at home and do household chores. It is mostly happened to girls or women because some people tend to see women as weaker than men. Sexual prejudice, All negative attitudes based on sexual orientation, whether the target is homosexual, bisexual, or heterosexual. Example: gay and lesbian workers receive unfavorable treatments from their coworkers and employers. People with homosexual or bisexual orientations have long been stigmatized, they often being stereotyped negatively. Ageism. It refers to the stereotypes against an individual or a group of people because of their age. Example: Mr. Gino lost his job because of his age even though he can still manage to do it properly. Some workers are being discriminated against when it comes to hiring due to their age. Corporate world or any job position are most likely looking for those who are fresh graduates and sometimes neglect those who they think are older for the position. Religious prejudice. This prejudice or discrimination is treating a person or a group differently because of the beliefs in their religion which they belong to. Example: some people sometimes perceive Muslims as terrorists. It is the negative attitudes or behavior between people of different religious groups. Some people may see their own religion as dominant among other religions. Classism. This prejudice is based on social class or grouping, or individuals based on their social class. Example: in one event, higher class people receive more favorable treatment from other guests while poor and working class people receive different treatment. It is the behavior or the system of policies that will surely benefit the higher class, and the lower class will suffer from different forms of discrimination.
Students, do you understand their differences? How about the different types of bias and prejudice? Can you still recall them? Really? That's great! So, here are some reminders for you.
Class, always remember that although they sound alike or similar to each other, and both are two attitudes that result in injustice and discrimination, there are still distinctions between them. Prejudice is way more extreme than bias. The main difference between of them is that bias is an inclination for or against a person, idea, or thing, while prejudice is a preconceived notion that is not based in actual experience or reason.
Do you want more? Well then, I'll give you another activity. This activity is entitled Arrange Me. I want you to rearrange the letters to form the correct answer. Write your answers on your notebook. I'll give you 5 seconds in each item. Let's start.
Number 1. Frequently used to justify and keep a group in a subordinate position such as lower social class. Here is the answer. Number 2. It is defined as an ideology based on the belief that one sex is superior to another. The correct answer is all negative attitudes based on sexual orientation, whether the target is homosexual, bisexual, or heterosexual. Here is the correct answer. Number 4. It refers to the stereotype against an individual or a group of people because of their age. The correct answer is Number 5. This prejudice or discrimination is treating a person or a group differently because of the beliefs in their religion which they belong to. Here is the correct answer. Number 6.
This prejudice is based on social class or grouping, or individuals based on their social class. The correct answer is... Wow! You did a great job! You're so impressive! And for that, I'm sending you another set of dog paws for the students who got all the correct answers. Brace yourselves, students, as we are getting closer for the hardest part of the activity. Are you still with me? Alright, I think you're ready to answer our last level of activity. This activity is entitled, Do You Think You Know Me? Try to analyze the possible situation in each given photo. Write your answer to your notebook. I'll give you 5 seconds to answer each item. Let's start.
Let's start. Racial prejudice. Beauty bias. Religious prejudice. Conformity bias. Sexual prejudice. Anchoring bias. Sexism prejudice.
Congratulations, class! You really did a great job today. Here is the last set of dog paws for you. Thank you for participating and staying with me until the end. And because you finished your class and answered all the activity, here's a special dog paw for you. This dog paw is scribbled into 5 points. Congratulations! For the last part, here is your assignment. Don't forget to take a photo of this or you can refer to your self-learning module.
Assignment.
Don't forget what you have discussed today. That's all for this episode. Watch out for more!